Hollywood in the 1910s and 1920s was awash with stars and starlets, hoping to make the big time in the silent movie industry. Behind the cameras were the directors and producers, and in 1922, the industry was rocked by the murder of one of its own. William Cunningham Deane-Tanner had been born on 22nd April 1872 at Evington House, Carlow, in Ireland, the son of retired British Army officer Major Thomas Cairns Deane-Tanner and his wife Jane O'Brien. He was one of 5 children born to the couple. Between 1885 and 1887, the young Deane-Tanner attended Marlborough College in Wiltshire, in the south of England, and 4 years later he travelled to the United States, landing in Kansas at a dude ranch, where visitors and tourists could experience what life was like on a ranch. It was run by a fellow Irishman from Ulster, Ned Tunley. It was while he was there he revived his passion for acting, which had begun at school. Sometime after this, he moved to New York City. There he met his future wife, Ethel May Hamilton, the daughter of a broker and investor, in an English antique shop on Fifth Avenue, where Deane-Tanner eventually worked. She was an actress using the stage name of Ethel May Harrison, and the couple were married on 7th December 1901 at the little church around the corner at 1 East 29th Street by the Reverend George W. Houghton. They went on to have a daughter, Ethel Daisy. However, he was unfaithful to his wife, drank heavily, and suffered from bouts of depression. On 23rd October 1908, Deane-Tanner disappeared and deserted his wife and daughter, and 4 years later, Ethel divorced him. During these years, little is known, but he did travel to Canada, Alaska, and the northwest of America, working in the gold mines, and took acting jobs with various theatre groups. Around 1912, the year of his divorce, he appeared in San Francisco, but had changed his name to William Desmond Taylor, possibly reinventing himself to leave his old life behind him. Here he met up with old acquaintances who loaned him money so he could move on to the heart of the movie-making industry in Los Angeles to try and establish himself as an actor. In 1913, Taylor appeared for the New York Motion Picture Company in The Counterfeiter. Then he worked for Vitagraph Studios, playing opposite the likes of Margaret Gibby Gibson, before meeting actress Neva Garber at the Balboa Amusement Producing Company. The couple became engaged, but they broke up in 1919. While at Balboa, he began directing, his debut being in 1914 with The Judge's Wife, and he went on to direct films such as Anne of Green Gables, Huckleberry Finn, and How Could You, Jean?, which starred Mary Pickford. He also worked for the American Film Manufacturing Company and Palace Pictures, later Famous Players Lasky, although he did work for Fox Film Corporation briefly in 1917. In July 1918, Taylor enlisted in the Canadian Expeditionary Force, where he trained at Fort Edwards in Nova Scotia, before being shipped to Hounslow in London. But by the time they arrived in early December, the First World War was over. After spending time in France in 1919 as part of the Royal Army Service Corps and reaching the rank of Major, he returned to Los Angeles on 14th May. The Motion Pictures Directors Association held a banquet in his honour. Shortly after this, he began directing again, but by this time his ex-wife knew he was working in Hollywood. She and their daughter had been at the cinema, and Ethel recognised him in Captain Alvarez, pointing him out as little Ethel Daisy's father. The girl wrote to him care of the studio, and he eventually visited them in New York in 1921, when he made his daughter his legal heir. On the morning of Thursday, 2nd February 1922, Taylor's body was discovered in his home at 404B, South Alvarado Street in Westlake, Los Angeles. The first police officer to respond to the call was Lieutenant Tom Ziegler. A crowd of onlookers had already appeared at the house, including actors and executives who were rummaging about, and among them was a man who claimed to be a doctor, who said he'd died of a stomach hemorrhage. Soon after, this alleged doctor left, before the forensic team arrived. When Taylor was turned over, it was clear he'd been shot at least once in the back with a small caliber pistol. The gun was never found. Investigators didn't think robbery was a motive. In Taylor's pocket, they found a wallet with $78 in it, a silver cigarette case, a pocket watch, a penknife, and a locket with a photograph of the actress, Mabel Normand, in it. He was also left wearing his 2-carat diamond ring on his finger. The day before, however, he'd had a large sum of money on him when he went to see his accountant, so where was that? His time of death was estimated to be 10 to 8 in the evening of 1st February. 49-year-old Taylor's funeral took place on 7th February 1922. The service was held in St. Paul's Cathedral, and he was interred in what is now the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. In the week following his death, many people were interviewed, including 19-year-old Mary Miles Minter, who'd written love letters to Taylor, which were found in his bedroom in the bungalow, along with her nightdress. Taylor, however, didn't reciprocate, citing he was too old for her. These private letters were published in the press, embarrassing her, and eventually she gave up acting. However, Minter did tell police that her friend, Marshall Nealon, himself a director and actor, had told her Taylor had been making delusional statements and thought he was insane. It later transpired Minter had tried to shoot herself once with the same type of gun used to kill Taylor. Minter's mother, Charlotte Shelby, gave a statement to police that was mostly made up regarding her relationship with Taylor, according to reports. It transpired that she owned a small .38 caliber weapon, along with some unusual bullets, very similar to the ones found at the crime scene. It was reported that she threw the weapon into a Louisiana bayou, and she spent much of her time away from the US after this. Her other daughter, actress Margaret Shelby, openly accused her of murdering Taylor in 1938, and she was widely suspected of the crime, but managed to evade prosecution. 5 days after the murder, local law enforcement were told to lay off the case. The reasons behind this can only be speculated on, but Hollywood was suffering as a result of the murder, with stakeholders losing millions of dollars and actors having their careers ruined. Had the studios put pressure on someone? The investigation wasn't short of a number of other suspects. Edward Sands had been Taylor's valet and cook until 7 months prior to the murder. He'd had previous convictions for forgery and fraud, and even while Taylor was in Europe in 1921, He'd forged his name on checks and crashed Taylor's car. Sands even burgled Taylor's home, leaving footprints on his bed. Following the murder, he was never seen or heard from again. Replacing him as valet was Henry Peavy, and he was the man who found Taylor's body. Just days before the murder, Peavy was charged with being lewd and dissolute. Peavy died in 1931 from syphilis-related dementia in San Francisco. Comedic actress Mabel Normand, whose photo was in Taylor's locket, starred with the likes of Charlie Chaplin and Roscoe Arbuckle. Taylor had fallen head over heels for her after she'd asked him for help to control her cocaine addiction, but kept relapsing, which had a devastating effect on Taylor. He'd met federal prosecutors, stating he would testify against her suppliers. Had they taken action to stop him from testifying? According to Normand, she'd left Taylor's bungalow at 7:45 on the evening of the murder, and he seemed to be in a good mood. As her limousine pulled away, she said they blew kisses to each other. She was the last known person to have seen him alive, and as such was questioned intensively, but police believed she had nothing to do with the murder, and she was ruled out as a suspect. At his funeral, she wept bitterly throughout. She died on 23rd February 1930 from tuberculosis. Next door to Taylor lived actor Charles Douglas MacLean, known professionally as Douglas MacLean, and his wife Faith Cole. At around 8 p.m. that fateful night, they heard a loud noise, and it was so loud they were startled by it. Faith rushed to the door, opened it, and saw someone open her neighbour's door, whom she described as being dressed like a motion picture burglar. They paused, returned indoors as though they'd forgotten something, then re-emerged, glancing across at her and smiling. What struck her was that this person looked funny, and it was surmised by the description she gave of the person's height and build. It was possibly a woman dressed up to look like a man. In 1964, shortly before she died, Margaret Gibson confessed to killing Taylor, but whether she was telling the truth or not is unclear. Much of the initial physical evidence was lost almost immediately, and the rest has been lost over time. In 2007, what little documentation was left was made public. As a result of the murder, newspaper sales in the US skyrocketed, while Hollywood suffered a severe slump, and in the years following, various Hollywood scandals appeared on the front pages. To date, no one has been found guilty of murdering Taylor, and the case remains unsolved.